following is a special presentation of the Sports Journey Network. Sports Journey.
And welcome to the Breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Dujunnea Bland, and today we have a special guest. Normally, I'm joined by my co-host, Karita Parks, but this is a NHRA / NFL edition of this show. It's going to be fun. And today, I bring to you guys Caleb Cox. He is the general manager of Cruz Pedregon Racing, and he knows his football. And that's what we're going to be talking today, a little drag racing, a little football, as we get into the U.S. Nationals that will be coming up this weekend. Caleb, how's it going, brother?
Having me on your show. I always love talking NHRA. I love talking football with you. So, anytime we can do that, I'm always down to talk with you.
Absolutely. And it's been a long hiatus. Given the circumstances, I have to say that the NHRA has done one heck of a job to keep things going, to keep guys like you and your team and others like you out there racing, their sponsors getting an opportunity to be seen. When we come to this U.S. Nationals, this team, the numbers don't show it, but I believe this team is moving in the right direction. I thought that was happening last year. The cars seem to be really, really good at Indy 3. 2 and 5 round win record. What is it going to take for this team to start putting it together and getting some consistent round wins?
I think it's just more runs down the racetrack. It's nothing, out of the ordinary. We came into this season with a game plan, and normally for every professional team, it should take, 4 to 5 races to figure out a good combination. The first 4 to 5 winners, more than likely, kind of stumble onto it. Some guys use the same combination from last year, but, with us, bringing on 2 new crew chiefs with kind of different mentalities and then meshing it with cruises, you have to find that perfect combination. And as you've seen, during our Corona Indy races, 1, 2, and 3, the cars gotten progressively better. We qualified 7th at Indy 1 and Indy 2 and qualified, I believe, 4th in Indy 3. The round wins don't show it, but sometimes that's luck. You got to look at some of those round losses where, we lost to J.R. Todd very closely. We've lost to a couple other people very closely, but it's hard-fought battle. It's not like when you look at the finish line camera, they're passing the finish line and we're still back at the starting line. I mean, we're talking tenths of seconds, hundredths of seconds. We're right there in the picture. So, us having 2 qualifying runs to get in now with the U.S. Nationals, it's going to be 3, but it's just more runs. We're used to making 150 to 160 runs a year in a season. So now that you cut that basically in half, it's really hard to pinpoint that perfect setup right now. But I think going into the U.S. Nationals this weekend, we have the car, we have the team. The conditions are going to turn to fall starting tomorrow. We're going to get a Friday night qualifying run. We're going to get 2 Saturday midday runs and get ready for Sunday. So I think you're going to see some fast speeds. You're going to get the fastest and quickest ETs you're going to see all season Friday night, and that's going to set the tone for Sunday for race day.
Absolutely. And, pointing at those 2 of those losses, you're looking at the Jack Beckman loss. That one was a tire smoke, but you look at the Tim Wilkerson loss, that was close, a 4-0 to a 409. You had the J.R. Todd loss. That one was another close one, 399-1, 4079. So the car has been there, and I agree with you. I think the car has been there, and it's just one of those things. And now you bring something else into the mix there when you're talking about 3 heads trying to come up with a solid combination. It's hard to do that when you don't have the consistency of racing every weekend and getting into a groove and a rhythm. and getting a chance to mull over data to come up with one solid plan because you're seeing the car run consistently. You're kind of getting to know it a little better. And with the lack of runs, it dictates, it's kind of a crapshoot sometimes, especially when it comes down to the weather that you guys are dealing with there. It's supposed to be a little better this weekend, though.
100% agree. I mean, the thing we love, and I know to a lot of people, it's the grind of the season, but the back-to-back races, we're on the road for 4 months with like 2 weeks off. That's the perfect time for us because now there's not that lull of a week or two in between where you got to sit around, think of things. When you have those back-to-back races, you're able to go right back into that same rhythm. So if you're a team that you found something that was working for you, and now you got to take 2 weeks off. It's like, well, maybe it won't work again. Maybe everything's going to be completely different. So we love those back-to-back races as close as we can get them. But yeah, with the conditions, the race day losses, the conditions, we ran the first two Indies at 9 o'clock in the morning, which we've never done. Normally race day for us is noon or 11 a.m. So track temperature plays a big role. Cooler conditions means faster times. So a lot of those guys, you're going into that condition range where you could throw at it a little bit harder, but with the two qualifying runs, how far do you want to push it? You don't want to smoke the tires, but it's race day. So this year's kind of been a crapshoot, but it's interesting in some ways. It's frustrating in another, but 2020, man, it's just like anything else. We just got to get through it, keep fighting through it, and get out to the other side.
Absolutely. Now, are you guys going to be doing any testing between the U.S. Nationals and the Gator Nationals?
I don't know about that. It will probably depend on how the U.S. Nationals go. We had an opportunity to test for Indy last Tuesday and didn't think that we needed it. I think the car is set up. I think we should be able to roll off the trailer and run mid 3.9s on Friday. I guarantee that. But before Gainesville, I don't know. I think we'll probably take the combination that we had at the beginning of the year when we actually got to Gainesville and probably plug that right back in. I don't think the conditions are going to be that much different. You're still going to get good air. You're going to get about sea level. But I don't think we'll do any testing. If we do, we might go to South Georgia Motorsports Park and run it, or we might stay in Indy. But that would be up to Cruz. And 9 times out of 10, it's just because, whatever happens in the race weekend.
Right. Now, how big of a deal it is between, ladies and gentlemen, the race is this weekend, and they don't see another race until the 25th of September. That's a long lull, including all the logistics of getting there. You think that plays a big role in maybe possibly stunting the momentum that you could build this weekend for that particular race and then trying to carry it forward through the next 5 races from there?
I think it can. But the one thing about, this weekend, obviously the U.S. Nationals is the biggest race in drag racing. It's the Indy 500. It's the Daytona. It's the Super Bowl. So, you throw everything you have at it this weekend. We bring 8 motors in the trailer. We'll go through 8 motors if we have to win this race. It's the most prestigious. It's the biggest pain. It's everything you want to win. There are guys who've been out here for 20, 30 years who have never won this race. So this is the race you want to win. So, do I want to get back to racing right after this weekend? Absolutely. But, if we have to go through some parts and go through some damage to get there, we might need a weekend or 2 off. So for this weekend, as hard as I guarantee everybody's going to push, you might want at least a weekend, but waiting to the end of the month, that's tough because we're sitting around on our hands kind of figuring out things to do. We can only clean so much. We're trying to, fix everything in the shop,
Right.
Get all the trailers back to normal, clean, paint, whatever. Just trying to find some busy work to do. But yeah, man, I can't wait for September to be over because we race the entire month of October.
Yeah, and that's going to be fun because it's something that we haven't experienced all 2020, and it'll be a nice change. And I think you guys being able to race consistently is really going to help this team because I'm a firm believer that this car is a heck of a lot better than it was last year and a heck of a lot better than it's had the opportunity to show with the sporadic racing here. Now,
Hmm.
in this particular pandemic, people are still turning over sponsorships, bringing new sponsorships on. Saw Ashley get a new sponsor. I think it was Manscaped or something like that. Tell us about some of the good news that you've gotten as far as bringing some sponsorships on board, especially for this race.
Well, for this race, it's been awesome. I'm a big card collector. I love the card community. The hobby is what we call it, and we brought on a breaker in card terminology is somebody who has memorabilia or sports cards or something like that, and people buy spots. Let's say if there's 10 spots at $10 a piece, you buy a spot. If your number gets pulled, then you get this, or if you get this number card and it's pulled, you get this. So company Rip and Gypsy out of Ohio. They were gracious enough to come on board. It's their first time, sponsoring any motorsports car. They're going to come to the race this weekend. Mindy, who is one of the owners, she's a huge gearhead. She's a car lover. So why not get your logo, your company on the land's fastest accelerating vehicle that's going to be live on Fox Sports 1. It's going to be live on Fox Network Television. So it's great exposure for any company right now who's trying to get, maybe the sales are logging a little bit. It's great to get out there, and it's cheap. And kind of like how I sell it to Mindy, you can go sell it to a NASCAR and you'll lose all your money real quick. NASCAR sponsorships are crazy. You go to these NHRA guys or even dirt racing guys, a couple $1,000 here and there, a couple $100 for some people, man, gets you a long way. So it's a great opportunity for people with small businesses who want to sponsor race teams. Always look at the NHRA. You get great exposure for the bang for your buck, hospitality, pit access, all the special widgets and whatever. But I still say for anybody, any company looking to sponsor a race car, that NHRA is the way to go.
I couldn't agree more. And now it's time for the NHRA, and I'm going to say it's time for the NHRA to step outside of their comfort zone, to step out of the Stone Age and come into the modern era and start displaying these drivers on cards. That way, the general public can get to know these guys a little better. Even if you had an opportunity to start showcasing some of the crew chiefs and Cruz on these playing cards or these type of race cards that are tradable, I think that's where it's at. And that boosts attention to the sport, and it boosts notoriety of these particular drivers and their crew members and their crew chiefs, etc., which again, in turn, is more exposure for the sponsors, and the sponsors love that.
Absolutely, and the NHRA did that back in '92. I actually have a set sitting on my desk, and they did it a couple years in the '90s with the crew members, the crew chiefs, showcasing the cars, the drivers. I mean, that's what it's about. You're trying to grow the brand. You're trying to grow the sport. How do you find that niche market of the younger demographic? How do you reach kids early to get them interested? Besides the sights, the smells, and the sounds, how else do you get them interested? How come there are not Hot Wheels dragsters and funny cars? How come there's no product placement of NHRA items at Walmarts and stuff like this? Toys for kids to buy. Why does it have to be set on the teams for it to do this? So of course, everyone has their ideas. I can beg and plead for this and pitch all these ideas, but somebody has to believe in it. Somebody has to take the reins of it if they want this sport to survive. And for the longest time, and I hate to say it, is they always believe that the cars are the shows, but the car is not the show. It's about the driver. It's like NASCAR. You associate the car with the driver, but the driver is the star of the show.
100%.
The people who are driving the cars, the people who are tuning the cars, and the people who are working on the cars should be the stars. You're not looking at the Snap-on Tools Dodge Charger. You're looking at Cruz Pedregon, the two-time Funny Car World Champion, driver and owner of the Snap-on Tools Dodge Charger. So there are many things that you can think of marketing-wise, publicity-wise, to change things around to make it better and more attractive to people. But that's a conversation that I've been wanting to have for years, and I've been trying to have for years. So if we can get somebody to sit down and listen to me for a little bit, I'm ready to talk.
Absolutely, because I'm with you on that. I remember a lot of things growing up when I first got introduced to drag racing, and the most and the biggest thing I remember are the drivers. Um, you know, my connection with Cruz goes way back to elementary school, and understanding when his brothers were out there. You know, you connect with those drivers, you connect with those crew chiefs, those crew members. It's not just about the cars. And one thing that the NHRA has is drivers with personalities.
Mm-hmm.
They always have, especially when they, let them be personalities and not so cookie cutter. Um, those are the things that people gravitate to. Sure, the cars are great, and it's so awesome to see that kind of power be harnessed in 1,000 feet. But it really is about the driver and his team is what really draws people in and makes them hooked and be longtime fans of this sport.
Exactly.
And that will close our NHRA portion of this show. And we're going to go to a break. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little NFL football, the AFC South. And we are back. And the NFL season looks like it's going to kick off, ladies and gentlemen. And I can tell you from the emails we've been getting from the league that they're doing a really good job as far as testing. I think about 10 cases this week. That's including players and personnel. So that is a good thing. And they're not even in the bubble. What's going to be interesting for me in this league, especially in the AFC, is the AFC South. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars there. You have the Tennessee Titans, the Colts. This is going to be a tough division. And I think the Colts and the Titans are the two best teams in the division. And I know that the Texans are there. I like what they have, but I really think that those two teams really can show something because of their youth, but they already have gotten the ball rolling as far as producing a team that can consistently compete and win. And the first question I want to ask you, Caleb, is starting with the quarterback position. They brought Phillip Rivers in. Jacoby Brissett, I liked. I always felt, though, that he was very much close on the cusp of being the reasons why the Colts would win, but I also like the fact that Brissett was not the reason they were losing. What do you think Phillip Rivers brings to this football team as a veteran quarterback who really not just leads by his play, but he has an attitude about him that can motivate others around him?
I agree with that's kind of what I would say. I mean, he brings that good leadership of being a veteran of almost I think almost 17 years, and then that attitude. I mean, you don't see very many quarterbacks with a spicy attitude like that, and that's something that I like, and I think that's what a team feeds off of. Jacoby Brissett, a very good quarterback, a very great leader, great guy, but he doesn't have ice in his veins, and somebody who's played the game for 22 years and who's been to 300 plus NFL games. So watching Jacoby play, you can see he has spurts of greatness and you have spurts of lull. And I don't hold that against Jacoby. He's a great, solid quarterback, but he's not that type of guy that will get you to the next level. He will not make that Super Bowl run. I think he's a great person to have on the team. Phillip Rivers, what worries me about Phillip Rivers is his turnover rate. And looking at the videos, I don't think I will ever come to terms of his throwing motion. His throwing motion is like almost kind of like how I have to have a throw a football now because of my shoulder surgeries. It's like a half-cocked quick throw, and like it's just something that I got to see. I've seen the scrimmages from the Colts last couple weekends, and he's developed a good chemistry with T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman Jr. and Zach Pascal. So it's gonna. I just got to see how it plays off. The way I've seen Phillip is good quarterback, solid quarterback. When it comes to big time games, he's not the guy to go to. But every season is different, and only time is going to tell.
Now, I think the key to this team, first of all, I believe Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be. He has the potential to be a solid wide receiver. His size, his range. If he's going to put in the work, I believe the sky's the limit for him. But I think the key on the offensive side for the Colts belongs at the tight end position. And I believe it was last week you guys signed a guy in Mo Alley Cox. Am I pronouncing his name correctly?
Well, I think Mo Alley Cox came off the PUP list. He's been on the Colts for the last 4 seasons. I think he spent his first 2 seasons on the practice squad. He's been maybe 5 seasons. First 2 seasons, I know we're on the practice squad because he came up and down. The 3rd season, he played pretty well. The 4th season, I thought he got injured, and then he came back and had another really great season. This is coming from a guy who never played college football. He was I believe, a center or a shooting guard at the University of Central Florida or VCU or somewhere, but right. A basketball player. We actually signed a kid from Indiana State University who's a versatile. It could be a running back, it could be a tight end, he could be a flex player, he could be whatever. And I think we signed him because, one, you get an 80-man roster this year, which, right. You can't have enough, and you got to kind of spot the depth that you're going to really need it. You look at the Colts tight ends, you got Jack Doyle, who's a great tight end, former undrafted guy from Cathedral High School in Indianapolis. The problem with Jack is he's coming off a hip injury, I believe, midway through last year, and he does have a concussion problem. Yes. So you have that. Mo Alley Cox, great player, can make some big-time catches, but he's still very, very green. So I think even though tight end we have a lot of depth, we're still kind of in that tweener area. I think for the Colts to be great this year, the position that I'm looking at is running back. We have really good running backs that are very versatile, including a fullback that we got from the Steelers, Knicks. But you add Marlon Mack, who's he's a thunderback. You could run him all 3 downs if you wanted to. You draft Jonathan Taylor, and you got Naheem Hines, who can catch out of the backfield. I mean, that's a stout backfield any way you look at it. So there's a lot of weapons there. You just got to figure out where you need to place them and how much depth you need at other positions.
Absolutely, and that's exactly where I was going to go to. That running back core is probably right up there, in my opinion, with the Washington football team, with all that talent in the backfield. Lots of choices there, lots of versatility, and we know how important versatility is in an offense, especially when you're talking about it in the backfield, because there's so many things you can do to kind of create mismatches against the defense. And I think that's going to be their strong suit, especially when you have Taylor and you have a Marlon Mack who you can rely on, and he could be a 3-4 down guy for you. And then you talk about their versatility. I believe Taylor can develop that as well, being able to catch out of the backfield and be elusive in the open field. That's going to be their workhorse for this offense, and everything else should play off of that backfield.
Agreed. I think the offense has the potential to be pretty strong. I got to see how, you're going to find out week 1 with no preseason. It's going to be pretty rusty for everybody trying to catch up to game speed. Now, as much as I like the offense, I think the biggest factor for the Colts this year has to be the defense. The signing of DeForest Buckner is huge. As a guy who's been a Indianapolis Colts fan for almost 30 years of his life, basically my entire life. That is my entire life. And I've been to every home Colts game since 1991. I can only think of 2 years where the Colts have had a very stout defense. One was last year, and two was the 2000, I want to say 9 or 8 season when Bob Sanders won Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
The rest of the season, or the rest of the seasons, has been the Peyton Manning era of we'll let the other team score 45 points because we'll score 50.
Right.
And now you look at it from D'Amico Autry to DeForest Buckner to Justin Houston, Anthony Walker, Darius Leonard. We're bringing Xavier Rhodes is on the Colts now.
Yes.
And you look at the backfield. The only issue I have with the Colts right now is that safety position. Malik Hooker, who we drafted a couple years ago in the first round, good player out of Ohio State, but has not shown he was a first round talent. He shows way too many mistakes and I was listening to a good coach from Miami University today. Players can play safety because they've played safety before. Now, I don't know how long Malik played safety before he got to Ohio State, but he seems to get caught in play action and running up, looking in the backfield way too much. It gets beat over the top. He's not an Ed Reed where he can cover that much ground. So I think that's why the Colts didn't pick up his fifth-year option. And I think he's playing for his job. Now, you look at this year's draft class. You draft Isaiah, I think it was Robinson out of Utah, had an ACL injury, which they knew of. But it sounds like this kid ran 4.28, hand-timed, can flip his hips. So I think Malik's got a battle there. That is my only issue with the Colts is safety position and maybe one of those corners. It's going to be interesting to see how Xavier is going to play. I know he was kind of a head case in Minnesota, but that happens. Sometimes you come to a new team and that changes. Unlike Vontae Davis. When we got Vontae Davis, I thought at the beginning I was never really a big Vontae fan, but he would make plays. But when he get beat, he would beat himself, and you would know that because he would fall down and fake an injury and grab his hamstring or his ankle or something like that and then be fine the very next play. So it'll be easy to spot really quickly if you know exactly what you're looking for, if you've been in those positions before and know what kind of a player mentality is like. So I'm really looking at Xavier Woods, and I really want to see the impact that DeForest Buckner is going to make.
Yeah, that's kind of along the lines I was thinking too with this team. I think the bulk of the Colts is win it with the defense, dictate with the defense. I think that front seven is something to be reckoned with. And if they can get the pressure needed and be disruptive, that's going to help their cornerback and it's going to take pressure off the safety position. And I've said it time and time again, and I always use the Cowboys as an example, especially under Marinelli. They didn't have a whole lot of talent when he was coaching there. Now, they had a few guys up front that could get after, but it was all about scheme, him understanding what he had personnel-wise, and then because he was able to scheme very well up front, it took a lot of pressure off the back end. So he made those corners that weren't really Pro Bowlers look like Pro Bowlers. They didn't have the answers at safety like the Colts here with Hooker constantly having these mistakes that are really costly because they usually end up in the points when you get caught looking in the backfield, or at least it's a big play down the field that puts a team in position to score points. But at the front seven of this Colts team can get after it, which they've shown that they can. I think they have good enough corners on the outside to be able to keep up with, some of the league's best receiver cores. If they can shorten that time and not end up giving the quarterback too much time, because we know what happens when you have too much time, they pick you apart. So it won't expose these deficiencies, especially from Hooker in the backfield. And that may give him enough time to learn. And like you said, didn't pick up that option. So he's playing for a job. He understands exactly what he has to do, and that his job and his ability to play in this league, at least for the Colts, is on the line. So that should be some big factors there in kind of helping shore up that back end. And if they can do that, You got a guy in Phillip Rivers that when things are good and when you're playing from not from deep behind, he doesn't make these big time mistakes. It's when you have to play major catch up that yeah, he can catch you up, but if your defense doesn't do its job, it can get out of hand quickly. And we saw that a couple times over there with the Chargers as well during his career over there. So I really like this defense though, and I think that's the formula for them to be able to kind of cement themselves. And if they can do that a few times this year, especially in a year where you can kind of take advantage of some teams in the first 3 or 4 games due to lack of tape, no preseason games, they can get ahead of the game there. They can set themselves up to be right there to win the division. Because I really think they can finish at the very least second in this division and contest with the Titans to try to win this division.
I agree with that. I think you're right. It's going to be an arms race basically between the Titans and the Colts. I think Houston, in my opinion, Bill O'Brien is the worst thing to ever happen to the Houston Texans. I mean, him becoming the GM and the head coach. I never liked his coaching style as it is, and I think as a GM, he makes moves by emotion, like trading of Hopkins and throwing away plenty of other players. You know, you look at the Jaguars this last 2 weeks. I mean, they're folding in as it is. I mean, they have to be tanking for Trevor Lawrence. You trade Ngakoue, which I understand he has problems with the Khan family and he wants to be paid this and that, but
Right.
you know, you get traded for what, a 5th and a 6th round pick, and you're making what, $12 million, which is so much less than you were going to make in Jacksonville. So, you know, that, or you have the Leonard Fournette situation where they just straight up cut him. This is a guy who's 25 years old, former 4th overall pick, has rushed for 1,000 yards in 2 of the last 3 seasons, and you can't even get picks for him.
Nothing.
So that tells me that there is something that they're not saying inside the NFL circles, that either something that hasn't come out, he's that much of a head case where he's not just trying to fight Buffalo Bills fans when he gets ejected. He's doing stuff inside the locker room, like that linebacker that punched Geno Smith and broke his jaw that one year for the Jets. Or there's something bad with him that nobody wants to touch because he went unclaimed. And for $4 million, if I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or some team that can make a run, why do you not have Leonard Fournette, who was built as the next Bo Jackson? We haven't seen a running back that size with that speed and that power in years. When he came out, I thought Leonard Fournette was going to set the world on fire. He was going to be playing in the Colts division. I thought, oh man, there's 200 yards a game when he plays us.
Right.
But he's not shown up. He's a big power back, but you know, he's
brittle.
Exactly. He's brittle, and I fear Maurice Jones-Drew more than I do Leonard Fournette now from what I've seen.
Exactly. And first of all, Doug Marrone had no business keeping his job, but that's neither here nor there. I think that the Jags have good quarterback position, and I know people see Chris Thompson and all they see is the injuries that he's had. Those injuries have been very unfortunate and the most obscure stuff that I've ever seen in my life. No one works harder than that guy. And if he can stay healthy this year and not have any crazy, weird injuries happen to him, I really think he can cement himself in this offense. You have a quarterback that can not only toss it, he's pretty smart, and Gardner Minshew. Jay Gruden is there. I'm not a fan of him as a coach, but as an offensive coordinator, he's going to scheme up some things for Chris Thompson to take advantage of his versatility as well. A lot of people don't think that guy can run between the tackles. He can, and it's very physical, but he's got to have the blocking up front. And unfortunately in Washington, he didn't have that consistent inside blocking for him to be able to be successful. But you're right, though. They're just having a fire sale, and I don't see how Doug Marrone, if you're going to have a fire sale, then why didn't you just get rid of your coach at the end of last year, if you're going to basically look like you're going to tank, and you probably won't win that many games this year, and you're going to end up canning them this year, you could have canned them last year.
Agreed. And it's one of those things that I think the Khan family, I think Shad, I don't know I can't tell if he's running that team or if Tony's running that team now. It's just or if Tom Coughlin somehow still has pull, or it's turning into the Raiders of Al Davis's final few years. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't know what's going on. Like, you have the parts and the pieces, you just don't know how to put it together, and you kind of throw your hands up like, I don't know. And then you look like the Dolphins of last year and be like, you know what, we're just going to trade everybody and hope for the best. But you're not even getting picks or anything back for letting these guys go. So
Didn't
it's like,
even get a Happy Meal.
Yeah, I don't even get nothing for everything that I just gave up. I gave up 3,000 yards of rushing, and I'm just sitting there with nobody else. Now, yeah, you got good running backs in the backfield, and those players are going to step up. I mean, they're in the NFL for a reason. It's not like they're crap players, but it's going to be a big testing season for the Jaguars, and you can look around the league at plenty of positions of guys who are going to have to step up that are in that same position. Like, you look at the Los Angeles Rams, Todd Gurley's gone. You got to look at Darnell Henderson. He's got to step up and take that role. He's a big old back too. He looks like Jerome Bettis when he was playing for the Rams back in the day. So
right,
you're going to see that all around the league. But in my eyes right now, the team that has no idea what they're doing is the Jaguars.
Agreed. I have to agree with you, because there's been plenty of times over the last couple of years before they started trading some of their big people on defense away, especially with last year. You thought, okay, you got a quarterback, you keep some of these pieces on defense, and add a few pieces on offense to give them some weapons, and boom, you got yourself a team that can compete in this division, and you start making this division pretty tight with 4 teams that could vie for the division, and no Moss. And I'm like, Tony's doing an excellent job with AEW, so I'm going to give you your props there. I don't know if he's running this team or not, but if he's not running the team as well as he's doing with AEW and some of the decisions that he has made, I think you should give him a shot. If he's not running it, or if he, how do I say that? If he is running this team and if this is what you're doing, then maybe you should give this to someone else. Maybe they didn't give Tom Coughlin enough, but maybe Tom Coughlin is just as senile as we thought.
Yeah. I mean, you were one series from beating the Patriots and going to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Like, you shouldn't be this far off.
Penthouse to the outhouse.
Exactly. Like, should you have got rid of Blake Bortles? Like, should you have kept Blake Bortles? Like, it's tough.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a complete and utter dumpster fire over there.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to hit you before we close this out with some NFL rapid fire.
Yeah.
And I'll start with the first question. The Washington what?
I would love to see 2 things. Either the Washington Sentinels or the Washington Generals.
Okay.
Because, or I want to keep, it would be awesome if they would change their colors, like to the old USFL team.
Right,
but
right.
That would be pretty cool. Or the replacements football team, because it's kind of built in there. But, I've looked at all the names. I thought the Red Tails would be pretty cool too.
I thought so too.
But, whatever their names are going to be, everyone will accept it. Everyone will complain like they do, but they'll accept it in like week 2, be like, oh, cool, it's back to the normal name. So I would love to. I just want the name change to be quickly, because I don't want to call them the Washington Football Team TBDs or whatever.
I want them to keep the football team name or call them the Washington Football Club.
Yeah.
It'd be cool.
Yeah, almost like a Premier League team.
Yep.
This is our Premier League.
Now, who do you think is going to have a breakout season as far as a rookie?
Oh, as a rookie,
Is
I
it
have two
quarterback, wide
guys.
receiver?
I have two guys on my radar that I think are going to have big seasons. One is Henry Ruggs III.
I
I
like him
think
too.
he is a versatile wide receiver that's going to make big plays. As long as he keeps the team around him and they get him the ball, he's explosive. He's explosive. He runs great routes. The second one is Chase Young. I think Chase Young is a monster. Now, the law that you see from the pre-draft hype to training camp to the first game, it's you got to look at the film. You can't just look at the highlight tapes. Like I can think
Absolutely.
of, you can think of guys like the Bosa brothers. They might not be making highlights every play or every game, but look at the tape and see how they're making the defense change. I think Chase
Absolutely.
Young is explosive. Now you're going to have guys like, I don't know if you remember Donateri Poe out of Memphis, who got
Yes,
drafted like 11th overall. And as soon as he got drafted, I said he was going to be a bust. And you know what? He's a bust.
he is.
Defensive line, defensive end is the hardest place to play in the NFL. But I think Chase Young is explosive, and I think he will be in the tops for defensive rookie of the year.
Cool. Now, where do you see your Colts finishing this season? We kind of talked about it. What do you think they're going to finish, and what do you think the record might be?
I think they're going to win 10 games. I mean, the AFC South, besides the Titans, is going to be, fairly easy. The Colts have
I think
the
so.
easiest record in the NFL, they're facing the easiest record in the NFL. So I think you got 2 games against the Texans, you got 2 games against the Jaguars. I got to look at the schedule to actually see. I know. I wish the Raiders would have fans because I know the Colts play the Raiders in Las Vegas in
Oh
December.
man, that
So
would be awesome.
would love to go there. I know since we're racing in Vegas at the end of October, I get to actually see the finished product of the stadium, which looked amazing since they started building it. But
It has.
I would like to see the Colts go 10-6, finish first or second in the division. Playoff run. I can't say a playoff run until I actually see the teams play. Like I don't really like giving predictions until I actually. Cruz does this to me all the time. Well, what do you think the Colts are going to do? I was like, dude, we haven't played a preseason game yet, man. I
I
can't tell
know
you what
it's
they're going to
tough.
do until people are actually out there running, jumping, and hitting each other.
Actually, absolutely, because it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell with no preseason games. So it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out here. And that's going to be it, guys. We had a great show, and I'm glad he was able to come on. Caleb was able to come on with us, man, because you guys got some gems from drag racing to NFL. This guy knows his stuff. So how about you tell them where they can find you at on social media?
Guys, I'm on social media, Twitter and Instagram, Showtime43cc. I'll answer any questions about drag racing or football or give you my opinions or I'm always on Twitter talking about football or fighting or whatever. So feel free to interact with me because I'm bored and traveling and doing drag racing things. So shoot me a message and I'll reply back and we can talk and discuss some football, especially when football season is going down. I'm so excited. Next Thursday, I am pumped.
Me too. Finally get some real action and we'll be able to start breaking down these teams and seeing some things live. And you can catch me, Not Bland 21 on everything. That's including Ghostcast. His handle is the same thing. Catch him on Ghostcast as well. And if you're not on Ghostcast, get there. It's a great app. It's fun. And, you can talk anything you want. So make sure you get over there and try that out. Again, we thank you so much for listening to this show. It is a pleasure to be able to do this for you guys. And it's also humbling that you guys listen to us. We thank you so much. And we'll catch you next week on The Breakdown.